as we have already completed 3 stories and 1 poem. 3 stories, the chief settled speech, an angel in disguise, a horse and 2 goats. These are the 3 stories we have completed. 1 poem we have completed last day. And now we are going to another poem left there in your syllabus. That is After Blenheim. Poem number 4 in your book, page number 16. All of you take it. That one we may do today. This poem is an anti-war poem. It is written by Robert Southey. Robert Southey was an English romantic poet. He was the poet laureate, court poet, means he had been given special respect in the court of the king, and he had some special privileges from the English king of his time. He wrote this poem in 1796 about a battle that took place in Blenheim, a village in southern Germany in 1704. After the war, around 100 years, he wrote this poem, and his aim was to criticize the people, those who are very much encouraged to go for war for their victory. Some people, some rulers, leaders wants to get high reputation and fame through declaring war, but the destruction, murder, and economic degradation they never consider. So these matters Robert Southey very cleverly described here. It is an anti-war poem that sharply criticizes the destruction and death caused by war. The poet uses the narrative of a grandfather explaining to his 2 grandchildren his own suffering and the suffering of many others like him who were victims of the battle. Here, the poet described this war destruction not as a description. It is through a story. A grandfather gives information about the war, and when we read to it, we feel that it is a story. But the aim of this poem is to convey this message, anti-war message. The grandfather cannot give any good reason for war and can only repeat that it was a famous victory. The grandfather was in favor of England. The war was between England and France, but the war field was in Germany. That means England and France both tried to capture the wealthy, fertile area of Germany when they come to Germany, naturally there were a lot of clash between both the powers. In Europe, both of them were highly influential. Many other countries supported both of them. France was supported by many countries. At the same time, England also was supported by many other countries. So it became the war between two very strong groups. The war took place in Blenheim. It was a village in Germany. The old man who is describing the story was in favor of England. So his statement, each and every statement, was in favor of England. And he said that it was a famous war. It was a famous victory. He believed that England became victorious. Obviously, this was the propaganda that was indoctrinated in the common people. Means common people generally misguided by one of the group. One group might have tried to describe they are right. The old man described here was in favor of England. He believed that the step taken by England was right and England became victorious in the war. This was the propaganda that was indoctrinated in the common people. The poet wants to emphasize through the repetition of the line that wars are senseless. But the poet wants to say that war is senseless, destructive, evil, and there are no real winners in war. Nobody is able to win, or all are the failures, all are the defeaters in the war. That is the point he wants to describe. This is a powerful poem that echoes Wilfred Owen's famous quote, "The pity of war." The sympathetic situation created by the effect of war is the major theme of the poem that the poet wants to describe. This poem is a wake-up call to seek peaceful solution to all conflict. There will be argument between different nations. With different issues may be there between different powers, but each and everybody should be ready to come around a table to discuss the matters, and it should be solved through peaceful talk. There should not be any use of weapon. If we use weapon, the other party also will be ready to use the same, and later on we may become the defeaters and no party will win. The ultimate result of war is destruction, death, and peaceless situation. Horror and terror will be the part of war. So these are the messages the poet wants to convey through the poem. Now we are going to read the poem, what the poem says. It was a summer evening. As a story, the poem begins. Old Casper's work was done. The old man described in the poem by the poet. His name is Old Casper. He was a farmer. After completing his day's work, it was a summer evening. Old Casper's work was done, and he, before his cottage door, was sitting in the sun. He liked to sit just out of the house. Here, we may have a confusion that during summer, we are not interested to sit in the sun. We don't have the interest to receive sunlight because it will be too hot. But in Europe, mostly cold region, their summer is also almost equal to winter here. During winter, heavy snowfall and almost all the area covered by ice and snow. But during summer, like our normal winter, the temperature will be low. So during summer, morning and evening, the European people like to receive sunlight. So after doing his work, he is free and he sit at sun to receive sunlight. And he, before his cottage door, he was sitting just in front of his house, was sitting in the sun, and by him, spotted on the green, the area totally covered by green grassland, and on that grass surface, spotted on the green, his little grandchild, Blenheim, his grandchild, a girl child, she was playing in the green grass. And two people were there, grandfather and grandchild. Grandfather was sitting before his house, in front of his house, and receiving sunlight. At the same time, his grandchild, Blenheim, was playing. She saw her brother, Peterkin, a third person. Peterkin, her brother, the brother of Blenheim's brother, rolled something large and round. He was kicking something round shaped and bringing before them. Rolled something large and round, which he beside the river. There was a small river nearby. By the side of the small river, Peterkin was playing. While he was playing, accidentally, he got a round, smooth object that he kicked and rolled towards his house, which he beside the rivulet. In playing, there had found. He came to ask what he had found. He was bringing that round object to know that what he has brought. what he has got from there. That means he was not able to identify what it was. He wanted to know what it is. To ask about the details of the thing, he brought this large object. He came to ask what he had found. That was so large, smooth and round. It was very large, smooth and round. He was not able to identify what it is. That was why he brought it. Old Casper took it from the boy. The grandfather, the old man, took that round, smooth object in his hand. Who stood expectant? The boy looked at the grandfather to get the information. He expected that he was going to get a proper information about it, that he was. And then the old man shook his head. The old man shook his head that there was the tone of acceptance, means he was able to explain it. He knew what it is. He is able to explain what it is. So he shook his head. And with a natural sigh, it is some poor fellow's skull. He said that it is a human skull. Said he, who fell in the great victory. Ironically, he says that who fell in the great victory during the victorious war of England and France. England became victorious and France was defeated in that war. That is the belief of the old man, the grandfather. Grandfather told that when the tight fight between England and France was going on, large number of people affected to it, many were killed. One of such person's skull you have found, and this skull is the skull of a man who was killed during the war between England and France. I find them in the garden. The boy said that the old man, the grandfather told that he also found similar skulls while he was doing his farm work. He was a farmer and he had a habit of doing farming. And when he was ploughing the land, making the farmland proper for farming, he found many such skulls. I found them in the garden, for there is many here about. He says that not only one or two people died there, large number of people, common people and soldiers were killed during the war, and that dead body spread here and there. Later on, many people found many of such skulls here and there. He himself also found. And often when I go to plough, the ploughshare turned them out. When he was leveling the land, there were no tractors that time. By using ploughs to level the land, to make the land proper for agriculture purpose. From the depth, he was able to find many such skulls that he. All of you, once you read that first page number 17. After that, we may continue. Come back to the next page number 18. For many thousand men, said he, were slain in that great victory. He says that large number of people, thousands of people were killed when the war took place. Now tell us what it was all about. Young Peterkin, he cried. And little William looks up with wonder waiting eyes. Now tell us all about the war and what they found each other for. Now tell us what it was all about. The little boy wants to know all the details about the war. Young Peterkin, he cries. He cries means eagerly he asks. And little Benjamin looked up. His sister was ready to listen to it. She was also eagerly waiting for what her grandfather is going to say. With wonder waiting eyes, she was very eager and surprised. Now tell us all about the war, both of them, Peterkin and his sister. Both want to know all the details about the war and what they fought each other for. What was the reason of the war? They wanted to know what was the reason of the war. It was the English, Caspar cried. Caspar said that English power became victorious. It was the English, Caspar cried, who put the French to rout. French to rout means the French power was defeated by English army. But what they fought each other for? What was the reason of the war? I could not well make out. I am not able to tell you what was the real reason of the war. I am totally unaware of it. But everybody is quoth he. He said, quoth he means he said. I could not well make out, but everybody said, quoth he, that it was a famous victory. He was sure that it was a famous victory. Means he was totally in favor of England. So he says that England became victorious and he was in favor of their victory. But what was the real reason of the victory? He is not able to make out. My father lived at Blenheim then. Grandfather told that his father was alive in the same village when the war broke out. Yon little stream hard by. Over there is a river. By the side of the river, my father lived. They burned his dwelling to the ground. The parties of the war, maybe power or the English power, lit fire everywhere, including each and every house, the field, each and everywhere. They lit fire. They burned his dwelling to the ground. Dwelling is the place where he lived, means his house was burned. And he was forced to fly. So there was no option than to run away from there. Means his father ran away from there. So with his wife and child he fled. There were three members in the family, his father, his mother and he himself. The grandfather told that he was taken away by his father and his mother also accompanied them. So with his wife and child he fled, nor had he work to rest his head. But they were not able to find a peaceful place to take rest. It was a very difficult situation. A place to take rest is not possible. Means not only in his village, but also almost all the nearby villages were affected by the war, and both the parties fought each other. Not only in this village, all the nearby villages they entered and did the same. And the people lived in that village were not able to lead their life peacefully. With fire and sword, the country round, each and every place in the village, each part of the country, filled with fire and destruction. Sword with the fire and sword means letting fire attack by using sword weapons were everywhere. Wood waited for far and wide, like that destroy nearby places and far places. And many a children mother then and newborn baby died. Many pregnant ladies and young children, newborn babies were killed. But things like that matter is almost same way everywhere must be at a very famous victory. But the old man says that it is a necessary evil. During war, people may die. It is a very common matter. So it should not be considered, the death and destruction should not be considered. We only consider only one thing, that is English victory. England became victorious over France. That is the only matter we have to consider. No other matter is important there. Till there, you read it. Tomorrow, we may continue the next part. More than half of the poem is over. I feel that you understood it. All of you should complete your workbook as early as possible. and do the summary of the completed stories and the poems. This poem, we will have revision test papers that you have to be very careful about and do proper way. So that's all today's class. Tomorrow we will meet again. Thank you. Bye.